Hey everybody, and welcome to our video on how to create full-stack platforms using a single TypeScript repository. And that's what we're all about here at Symmetric. We want to help TypeScript engineers really make the most of the ecosystem. The first step to getting this done is to plan your platform architecture. What this means is to step back and think about how users are going to actually interact with your software. And the questions you should ask yourself include: where in the user journey does someone start? What are the different steps that he or she has to take in order to get the value from our product? And then lastly, what technologies do we need to build in order to actually bring this to life? The second step is to create your TypeScript monorepo. This is really easy with Symmetric. It's as quick as filling out a form, and you'll have a really nice starting point that has all of your web applications, your SDKs, and your REST APIs, all in a really nice TypeScript Git repository that you can host on GitHub. And the nice thing about this is all of these workspace packages are designed to work together. The third step is to actually deploy it to the cloud. For some folks, this can be tricky, but a nice way to really think about it is to segment it into 3 parts. And deploying to the cloud really comes down to getting your cloud infrastructure right. So this includes things like your security settings, your database architecture, and so on. Configuring your DNS records, and then lastly, getting your CI/CD pipeline right. And so in many cases, it's better to show than to tell, so let's actually go through a live demo. And like most of the best companies out there, Symmetric eats its own dog food. So Symmetric itself is built on this concept of using TypeScript monorepos for full stack projects. So what you're looking at right here is our main application, Symmetric3D.com. It's a Next.js web app, and it fits within our larger repository along with 4 other web apps, which I'll talk about in a bit. But as you can see, this is your typical React web app. It's nice because it's super responsive, and it compiles into a static site that you can host on Firebase. You can click around and see that, per usual, you have all of the nice things that you would expect out of a web app, but instead of having to give it its own repository, it fits within this broader TypeScript monorepo. And we have 4 other sites that make up Symmetric. I won't go through all of them, but at a high level, it's the main site, our blog, our documentation, our login site, and then lastly, our actual core product, which is our cloud dashboard. So here's an example of logging in. This is all pretty typical stuff. And each of these is a Next.js web app. And the nice thing is the product itself is going to have lots of different deployments. And you'll really slow yourself down if you have to give all of these deployments their own repository. You have to clone all of them. It's a nightmare. But with a monorepo, everything fits together. So this is the user interface you're used to if you have a Symmetric account, where you can manage your monorepos. You can go through and look at all your platforms. So that's a quick tour of what this actually looks like in practice. Let's take a look at what the code looks like under the hood. So when you make a platform on Symmetric, this is what you'll get for your full stack project. You'll get a TypeScript monorepo that will have all of the web apps, the REST APIs, and the SDKs that you need in order to actually create it. And so the files at the root of this monorepo, they're doing the real work of the product. So we have 4 files that I want to quickly go through in order to explain how to create these full stack platforms. The first is your Docker file. This is going to spin up your Docker image. And the nice thing about this is no matter what type of machine you have, or whether you're running this locally, as I am, or in the cloud, you'll have a consistent environment in order to do your development. And then when you deploy this, you'll also be able to ensure that the deployment environment is the same as your local environment. The next is the package.json file, which has an important field called workspaces. Later on, we're going to have an entire video dedicated to how this works in practice, but it suffices to say that each of these directories that has web apps, REST APIs, and SDKs, they're included in this array so that when you run commands like TypeScript, like telling the TypeScript compiler to run in watch mode, it's going to look for all of the files inside of this workspace. And you can do really cool things like create symlinks. It's a really magical field. You also have a root tsconfig.json file that allows you to set project references and configure your incremental builds. And then one of the coolest files you get when you build with Symmetric is a symmetric.json file. And this is used by our CLI in order to add new apps or add new features to your product. So there's way too much to talk about in one video, but it suffices to say that when you build with a TypeScript monorepo, you can do really cool things. You can add as many web apps and as many APIs as you need. You can create these SDKs that are able to be used across your entire platform. And what's best is you can also automate your deployment. Anytime that you need to add a new application, you can simply create a new workflow or add to an existing workflow, and then they all get deployed over GitHub Actions. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or head over to the Symmetric Discord server. And thanks for watching. Peace.